guys, it's Quanah back again with another review. Hope you guys are doing awesome. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Wonder starring Florence Pugh. This film was directed by Sebastian Leon, I think is how you say his name. He is a Chilean director. I am completely unfamiliar with his work, but this is a psychological period piece. And I must say, I don't think I've ever watched a psychological period piece. Period pieces that were horror, but not psychological period pieces, I don't think. And this was surprisingly really good. Although, let's face it, we don't really have to question at this point the acting ability of Florence Pugh. She is that girl. And in my personal opinion, I think that she is definitely like the Meryl Streep of this generation, or she's definitely going to be up there with that. This film stars Florence Pugh as an English nurse named Lib Wright, who served in the Crimean War, and she is tasked to come and keep watch over this girl named Anna, who has been fasting for 4 months, hasn't eaten a bite in 4 months, and is still alive. And her town and community want to know how she's doing it. They want to know if this is real. They want to know if this is a miraculous event, and should they be lauding her as a saint. That is the general premise of this movie. This movie is a movie watching experience, and the director makes some interesting choices, and that I'm going to just spoil this for you a little bit, because he does some breaks of the fourth wall, especially at the very beginning of the film, that lets you know that you're watching a movie, lets you know that you're watching a story that is not necessarily a literal real story, but is the story that has been told multiple times, like so many stories throughout history. And then you go into the actual period. And I think because he does that early in the film, you spend about the first 5 to 10 minutes just trying to grapple with what the heck are you watching, to the point where you kind of miss a little bit of the acting and the story in the first 10 minutes, because literally I spent the first 2 minutes trying to figure out, like, but wait, what was the first 2 minutes? So 10 minutes later, I was still scratching my head trying to figure out what was the first 2 minutes of the movie. And then finally, I just like, okay, I guess we're not going to talk about that. So let me just go back to watching Florence Pugh, who is amazing, on screen, and deal with that. And then once I got over that hump of realizing that they weren't necessarily going to address the first 2 minutes and the fourth wall breaking at the beginning of the movie, I could then just enjoy the story that's being told. And the story is completely captivating. Everyone in this film does a really good job. I love the fact that the film is set in Ireland, because the film is set in 1862, and if you look like me and you live in America, you know what my ancestors were doing around that time. So the fact that it was set somewhere else where I could kind of, sometimes watching films that are set during that time period, I'm constantly thinking about what my people, but being that this was in Ireland, and if Ireland and England had their own ish going on, I could completely just immerse myself in the period piece of it all and what was going on there. And once I let go of everything that came before, it was a completely captivating story and film. Florence Pugh is doing some heavy lifting right now in some of these films, and I don't think that this was a bad one in any shape or form. I just think that those fourth wall breaks are going to confuse a lot of people and take people out of the movie a little bit, and possibly cause people to, like, you're just trying to grapple with, is this guy a genius for doing this, or is he just strange for making these choices? But Florence Pugh shines on screen. And this brings me to this greater conversation that people are having around recent comments by Quentin Tarantino and old comments by like Martin Scorsese, and also recent comments by Jennifer Lopez around the Marvelization of the film industry, and how there are no movie stars anymore, and how the film industry only makes superhero movies. And I did some calculating. It's November, and while there are 2 superhero movies in theaters right now, Black Adam is still in theaters, and not doing that well. And of course, Wakanda Forever is in theaters and doing very well. But aside from that, there's a ton of movies that have been released recently, and good movies and suspenseful movies. You've got Glass Onion, which is a Knives Out drama. It's out for 1 week limited release and then heading to Netflix. By all accounts, that's a very good movie. I mean, Netflix. And by all accounts, it's a very good movie. And probably Netflix is probably kicking themselves for not doing a longer release. But at the same time, they want to be able to have this movie go to streaming, so that way when it gets maybe some nominations, they get the glory of all of that. You've got The Menu. You've got just tons of movies that are out right now just within this month. And so the question becomes, what in the world is Quentin Tarantino talking about? I mean, yeah, sure, we don't have currently, a Titanic, but movies back in the day weren't seeing Titanic numbers anyway. That's what made Titanic Titanic. And superhero movies are going to make Titanic movie money because everyone, for the most part in the family, everyone aged 10 and up can go see Wakanda Forever, right? You can take Granny, you can take the 10-year-old. Some people can take younger kids. Our kids haven't seen Marvel movies because we don't let them watch actions because we don't. It's a whole thing. But you can take the whole family to see Wakanda Forever. And if you have a family of 5, if we took our whole family to go see Wakanda Forever and it was a matinee, then we're spending $35. If it's not a matinee, we're spending about $50 to $60 at least, right? The whole family can go. You can't take a kid to go see a Quentin Tarantino movie. You can't take a super religious grandma to go see a Quentin Tarantino movie. So it's just a bit ironic because, and I say, obviously I am a Disney fan, and for those of you who know me, I am a Disney fan and I'm a Marvel head. But I just think that you can talk about the Marvelization and what Marvel is doing and how it's changed cinema. In very real ways, there are things that Marvel and these superhero movies have done in terms of movie releases, in terms of cinematography, in terms of scores, in terms of at the cut sequence, the end credit scenes and mid credit sequences and things like that, right? All of those things you could talk about. You could even talk about franchises and the difference between franchise-based audiences versus the film theatrical audience who's going to go to see a director or go to see an actor. But I think to conflate that argument and say that there are no stars anymore, when someone like a Florence Pugh exists, there are literally people who will go to see her in anything that she's in. There are people who went to go see Don't Worry Darling because despite the hot mess that was that set apparently and all of the marketing around that with Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles and all of those things, people had heard about Florence Pugh's portrayal in that film and know that she is a juggernaut right now, and she is like at the top tier of the acting game, and they want to see her. There are people who still want to see Tom Holland, not just as Spider-Man, but who went and saw Uncharted, even though that wasn't necessarily a superhero movie. Tom hasn't done as many dramatic roles, and so we'll see what happens with that. But Timothée Chalamet is another person who people definitely go and see him. He's definitely like the Johnny Depp, I think, of this generation, right? So there are definitely people who... Idris Elba played a very minor role in a Marvel movie, but he is an actor who people will go and see his movie, especially if it's an action movie, because it's Idris Elba in an action movie, because it's Liam Neeson in an action movie. So I say all of that in this conversation around The Wonder to say that Florence Pugh is that girl. She is definitely the actress, and one of the actresses of this time, one of the young actresses of this time, who can act her way out of a paper bag. She's going to do phenomenal in the Thunderbolts and do phenomenal in the Marvel series and everything like that. And she's going to do phenomenal when you give her an indie movie. And definitely check out The Wonder on Netflix. And let me know down below in the comments, if you've had a chance to watch it, what you thought about those fourth wall breaks, because that was an interesting choice to make. So if you enjoyed this review, guys, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps me out over here as I try to grow to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys as always, and I will see you in the next video. Ta-da!